This is Maheen, and welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, a platform which is dedicated to the heart and soul of our economy, the small businesses. In each episode, we focus on crucial aspects that define and shape our communities, bringing insights and inspiration to our listeners. Today, we're particularly excited as we delve into the realm of operational excellence, a key driver for the success and sustainability of small businesses. We'll explore innovative strategies, real world challenges, and the transformative impact of efficient operations on business growth. It's our pleasure to introduce Hazel Lord, the founder and president of Pearl Operational Design Inc. Hazel is a beacon of excellence in the realm of organizational culture assessment and operational excellence. With an impressive educational background from Queen's University and the University of Toronto, coupled with a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt certification, Hazel stands as a paragon of transformative leadership. Her unique approach has revolutionized workplace environments, earning her an acclaim as a lecturer and a visionary change agent. Join us as we delve into her journey of inspiring change and driving operational success. Good morning, Hazel. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Maheen. I'm doing really well. And how are you?
Very well. And it's an honor to have you with us on the Small Business Podcast. I mean, your journey on revolutionizing operational strategies is truly commendable. And we'd love to begin our session by discussing your entrepreneurial journey, right? I mean, embarking on an entrepreneurial journey is a tale of perseverance and vision. Hazel, how did your unique background and experiences led you to establish Pearl Operational Design Inc.?
So, first, I would like to say thank you. I was very excited to come on this podcast, and you may have to fight me to leave because operational excellence and talking about operations is something that I'm really passionate about. And while that passion always comes out, it wasn't really a vision for me to be an entrepreneur. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background because I think that really plays into why I'm here, how I showed up, and really the genesis of Pearl Operational Design. So I'm from the Caribbean, a little island called Barbados.
Okay.
And in Barbados, primary and secondary education is actually heavily subsidized. So some people might say it's free, but very, very subsidized. And I say this while I didn't necessarily go through the public school. I say this because as a nation, we prioritize education. And then at home, my parents, and I know I'm going to be dating myself here, but surrounded us with opportunities for learning. So materials where if we had questions, so like encyclopedias, medical encyclopedias, where we were able to, if we had a question, to go and delve into it and answer it. So education was really, really at the heart of it. And I can't speak about education without talking about a professor that I had, a teacher. I remember before he even introduced himself, he said, "Question everything, including me." And that really told me that I am the curator, so to speak, of my learning. And we really, in those stages, prioritize learning, knowledge, and growth for the betterment of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the unfortunate thing about the education system is it causes you to make choices very early on. So at 13, you're choosing between, for example, geography and biology.
Mm-hmm.
So that then got me to go and say, okay, well, what are you good at? What is it that you like? And that was math, physics, and chemistry, because math is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the encyclopedias to figure out where should I sit with these things that I liked. And I found chemical engineering. So at 13, I actually knew I wanted to be a chemical engineer.
Wow.
And so that's the education piece. And that's huge because it's actually one of the values of Pearl Operational Design Inc., which I will say POD. So when I refer to POD, I mean Pearl Operational Design. So then with this teacher who also generously spent his time on the weekends, would open up for us as a group of friends to study together and to learn. And so I got an island scholarship, which I was able to then choose anywhere in the world I wanted to study. And I chose Queen's University. And in doing chemical engineering, that's where I found my love of system thinking and problem solving.
Mhm.
So I think I was always a problem solver, but system thinking, because as chemical engineers, we design plants.
Right.
We look at things holistically and figure out how does it actually deliver something.
Mhm.
And that translates into everything. So I would say a big thing for me was the education piece. And then last but not ever least is family.
Right.
So my name is the name of the business is Pearl, and that's my mother's name. And I went to my family when I wanted to start my business in earnest. I went to my family and said, I need a name. And my niece sat with me and took all these notes about what do you want this business to be? And she started to acronize my mother's name. So Pearl actually stands for Performance Excellence, Achieving Results in Leadership.
Okay.
And that's what she did. And the minute she said she did it, she didn't tell me as yet. She told her mom, and my sister told me, do you know that this is what she's doing? And I'm like, this kid's brilliant. And I immediately started to write my mother's values
Right.
because as a mother, she was a nurse. And we experienced her people first values, both as a mother and as a practitioner. And I knew I wanted this organization to be people first, and I wanted this organization to lead with values, and I needed to nurture the culture. Of course, I grew up really close with my sisters,
Mhm.
and they're my rocks, and they're the ones I've been on this journey with, and I call them my unofficial advisory board because, and I think and I would say this, anyone going on an entrepreneurial journey, you need to have that. You need to have those people who are on the journey with you, who will tell you at times, remember you said this. Remember you said you were going to do this, because it's really anchoring. So I would say that my journey, very much about education and very much about family, and seeing in the workplace that gap between strategies changing but never getting to the execution level.
Mhm.
And that's when I was doing my MBA. That was the birth of
Right.
Pearl Operational Design and my thinking around this entrepreneurial journey in operations.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's so touching how just the motivation and inspiration behind the overall platform and how you found it is truly commendable. Thank you so much,
Mhm.
Hazel, for that. Now, if you build onto this a bit more, yeah, Hazel, what were some of the key lessons that you learned during the initial stages of your beautiful entrepreneurial journey?
Ah. So you know what? And this is not necessarily a lesson, but it's something that was parked and came to mind. So always remember what you've learned even before you join your entrepreneurial journey.
Mhm.
So I went to an event, and a gentleman from the States, Dr. George Fraser, he came to talk. And he himself's an entrepreneur. At that time, he had been in business for, I think, about 20 years. And he talked about this three-legged stool. He said, the first thing is you need to do something that people need, right? Then you have to be passionate about what you do. And the third leg, which is money, will come. And he said, and he talked about people who focus on the money, but not focusing on the first two. So actually, when I started my entrepreneurial journey, that came front of mind. And I said, well, I already knew that operations, there was a huge gap.
Mhm.
Many businesses are challenged with that strategy to execution piece. So I knew there was a need. I'm very passionate about this, and I wanted the organization to actually attract people who were also passionate about
Mhm.
this. So focus on the first two, the third will come. The second thing, as a person who's going to be privileged in managing people, there's a level of introspection that needs to happen. How are you going to show up? Because you're showing up for your clients, you're showing up for vendors, you're showing up for partners, you're showing up for eventually people who are going to come into your organization, and you can't do everything all at once. So you have to understand, what is it that I can do? What is it that I can't do yet? And what is it I need to ask? How do I show up? Is it easy for me to ask? So there's really a level of introspection I think you need to have. And the final thing that I would say was my lesson learned early on. I mean, I've had so many lessons, but early on, pacing and patience. So
Mhm.
my mother used to say, nothing before it's time. And I see that directly linked with pacing and patience. I see too many entrepreneurs who want to be huge immediately or in the short period of time, and not necessarily pacing with what is it that they can do through introspection, right? And then being patient and knowing what is it that I need to accomplish at a certain period of time. And I need to build on that so that I don't essentially kill myself. I know there's this whole thing about you gotta love the hustle, but really you also need to be healthy. And so I would say patience and pacing would be the third thing for me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hazel, for those insights and for sharing your inspiring story about your journey and some of the foundation experiences that you've shared that shaped, Pearl operational designing. So, but with such a positive outlook, we'd love to learn more about how do you overcome economic challenges, right? We've been facing them for the past 2-3 years.
Right.
Adapting to economic shifts is a testament to a leader's resilience and, strategic foresight. Hazel, can you share the strategies that you implemented to overcome recent economic challenges?
Okay. So I would say, and this, and don't by any means believe that I have everything all together, but the biggest thing for me, when I started Pod was really, so I did a lot of research. Even to this day, I consume anything that talks about businesses, how they were formed, who started them, what was their journey, what inspired them, what challenges they faced. And, the problem people always talk about with small businesses, access to capital. And while I believe that is the case, if you have a capital intensive business where you require that upfront costs in order to just open your doors because you need to invest in, leasing or purchasing assets. That is important. I looked at Pod, a professional services organization, very much knowledge based, and I said I don't really need to have a huge amount of capital. So at the get-go, I actually established one financial ratio, and a lot of people laugh at that, but it was debt to equity.
Right.
And I will encourage any entrepreneur, find a financial ratio that you want to set as a target, even if you are taking debt. Find it as a target and make sure you don't breach it.
Right.
So I set debt to equity to equal 0 because I said I did not want to have to scale this business by going into debt. There are other plans for me in debt financing for other strategic activities, but just in terms of scaling a professional services organization, I did not want to have to go into debt. And so while it was a slow pace, which was fine because I had to nurture my culture, we kept that target as 0. And that may have been foresight because I didn't have the challenges of interest rate hike and cost of borrowing going up to have to deal with as we have just had to deal with the current economic crisis.
Right.
The other thing is that we're operations. So we know the importance of creating an operations that's as, I don't want to say lean, but as efficient in terms of financial resources as possible. So just really focused on that because all entrepreneurs have to look at that delicate balance, and I say it's delicate, between when you can secure your resources coming in and you can match that with your operations. So I would say definitely being very, very careful on that, but that's just because that's in our business, right? It's kind of like a hairdresser is always having hair that looks good. At least you hope so. And that's really what I would say were the two things for us that ensured that we weathered this economic challenging tide. And of course, back to the learning, pacing and patience to go as slow as possible.
Yes.
Very much.
But just curious, and I'm sure our audiences as well, Hazel, how did these experiences really help you manage, risk management and future planning for your business?
So for me, the economy, yes, but there are certain aspects of my operational design that are critical to the economy, and that's, the biggest component of your operations design is your people. So my risk for me anyway, and I was just having this conversation with our HR, is making sure that we hire the right people. Yes, we have the economic challenges. I think in your organization, you should always know what is the cost of actually bringing on people, what's the cost of scaling, because you're looking at that every time you are right? So we are very controlled. We use technology where we can because automation helps to streamline. Because our goal is not because I have a value proposition to my clients as well as to my colleagues in pod. We make sure that we are not hiring, in fact, like not going in that cycle. We haven't had to do any of that. So managing the risk is managing for me. It's the financial risk by making sure our operations are as lean as possible, but also managing what our human capital is going through in these times as well, and making sure that they are able to come and show up as authentically as possible and be able to do the work for our clients. And that is critical in professional services, which is really heavily based on knowledge.
Right.
Yes.
Your insights, Hazel, on overcoming or navigating the economic challenges really offer guidance for our audience to really excel in the, business resilience. And, thank you for your
100%.
guidance there. But let's kind of turn our focus towards something that Pod and yourself is leading in, which is operational, excellence.
Yes.
Which is very pivotal in driving business success, right?
Mhm.
Hazel, from your extensive experience, could you explain the concept of operational excellence and its impact on business efficiency and success?
Okay. So, and you may not, people may not necessarily like what I say, but operational excellence means different things to different people and different businesses. Right. So I will break it down. So operations is really how you deliver your value. So, for example, if I just looked at this podcast, your value to your listeners is to make sure that you are providing content that is um inspiring for them. They get a chance to learn. Maybe they can connect with some people. Like, you have a value that you're delivering. In doing that, you have to have processes to actually secure your talent. You have to have scheduling. You have to have the technology. You need to have people who are competent. There are all of these things. You need to have facilities. You need to have all of these things that work in concert to deliver that value. Those are your operations.
Right.
Right. For excellence, I'll go back to my days of studying karate. So I studied karate for 17 years, and there are a lot of the principles that I incorporate. One of them is seeking perfection. So it goes further. It says seek perfection of character, but I will say seek perfection. And while we know that perfection is not necessarily an end state, right? Perfection, and we sometimes we don't even know what perfection is, but we set a target. And what seeking perfection means to me is continuous improvement.
Right.
And that is where I anchor my definition in excellence. So operational excellence, as I believe it is, and as we as Pod embrace it, and then sit and listen to our clients in terms of what it is that they want, is really establishing effective operations that allows you to deliver to your stakeholders. And I would say stakeholders because I have a value proposition that delivers to clients, to colleagues, to vendors, right? And in doing that, you are continuously improving the system that cohesively works together to deliver that value.
Right.
And that's operational excellence. So that's why it looks different for different people.
You're right. I mean, it matters. It also depends on the type of people, what they're leading, and what they're doing.
100%.
But you've shared some great experiences from your life, Hazel, and to build onto this a bit more. In your experience, like, what are some common pitfalls that businesses should avoid when they're on their journey to achieve operational success?
Okay. So first, design your operations. I was having a conversation with a client, and they had a business advisor who had, who had established a business and sold it to one of these big organizations. And I said, people don't actually design their operations. as they would do. Like, for example, if you're going to build a house from scratch, you're going to sit down, you're going to be the architect, you're going to build that house. And if you want to do a basement or you want to add on, you're going to go back to that design and you're going to say, okay, is it going to integrate in terms of my aesthetic and the function of the space? We don't do that with operations. We kind of just let it evolve and it kind of grows. And then when there's a challenge, you go back to it and you maybe map out some processes because you're putting in some big ERP system.
Right.
So I would say be intentional in designing your operations, because that's where some things fall. And that's for two reasons. One, I would go into organizations and you hear this collective we operate in silo. And people don't like what I say, because I say, of course you do, because you're organizationally designed in silo. Your org design is generally in silo.
Right.
So I would say if you want to achieve excellence, you're now thinking less about how you're organized vertically and more about how you organize horizontally to achieve what it is that you're supposed to achieve. So I would say that would be one of the pitfalls. The other thing is organizations, and I think they're linked, organizations tend to look at efficiency without effectiveness. And operational excellence is not about that. People always think operational excellence is just about being efficient. It's actually both. And so when you start to look at efficiency only without being effective, you're now removing the value that you're delivering to your client. And you're going to create a system, and I'm sure we've all experienced, I've
Right.
spoken and written about it quite a lot, where you know that the organization has benefited and you don't feel as if you have, and that erodes the integrity. So focusing only on capturing efficiencies is a huge pitfall. You really need to look at them both. And then I would say use language with integrity and not as a way to manipulate. So when you're going to do something, people use a narrative sometimes that speaks to this is what you want to do, but so, the gold standard, or right, putting a nice name on something, but it really hides what you're really trying to accomplish. That erodes, again, your integrity. So really being clear on the focus of what you're trying to achieve, keeping the customer in mind, keeping your staff or your colleagues in mind, and ensuring that you're not eroding the integrity of your organization with any of your stakeholders.
Right. Great expertise, Hazel. And they really offer you really offered a roadmap for businesses striving for peak performance. Now, in the world of business, unique experiences often shape the trajectory of, professional success and innovation both. Can you discuss a significant experience or a turning point in your professional journey that had a profound impact on your approach to leadership and business strategy?
Okay, so I'm going to go right back to, and so this would be, I would say, leadership. So I have a thinking on leadership. I discuss with my colleagues. I actually don't call myself a leader, and and this is my thinking. Leadership is something experienced by people that you manage. So you really manage people. If the people that you manage believe you're a leader, then that title is bestowed on you.
Right.
Is my thinking. So, and I say this because this impacts what I would consider for management for me. When I was fresh out of university, I went back to the Caribbean and I was working in a plant as a chemical engineer. You work in a plant, and I was actually on a program to be promoted, and I went through everything. I did everything, the exams, the tests, traveling to learn different courses and everything. And things transpired where my promotion was stopped, and it was very difficult to understand why this was the case. I went to my manager, and my manager said, oh, I can't help you with this, but I can give you the information. And I realized he had a lot of information. He was a great guy. We had a great relationship. He had a lot of information. So he knew that I was being held back,
Mm.
but never wanted to step forward and help me.
Right.
That courageousness wasn't there. And so I had to fight that battle myself.
Right.
And two things happened. So I don't know if this is innovative, but two things happened. I realized that in the meetings with these leaders, they would call themselves, I had to listen. And that's when you realize the value of being curious, asking good questions or asking questions, and listening, because I had to do that to advocate for myself.
Right.
And a couple of things came out of that. I said, if ever I was given the privilege to manage someone, I would go to bat for them
Right.
if they're being unfairly treated, because I didn't feel good. And I was fresh out of university. So it was great learning for me. But I was fresh out of university, as they would say, like wet behind the ears, and having to go and advocate for myself. I did get my promotion. So the advocacy was good, but it just highlighted the importance of listening, not just in that case, but listening, period. It's a very big part of what we do. And also knowing that how I need to show up for people who I am in a position of managing,
Right.
needs to be in a way that they don't feel they need to advocate for themselves. They need to be able to do work and be in a space where they can test their learning, they can learn. And so I see leadership, and I see it missing in many articles. I see leadership as uplifting.
Right.
That's what you're doing. You're uplifting people who you have the privilege to manage.
That's a beautiful perspective, really.
Yeah.
And I wish many other people, can really adopt them in their day-to-day lives or the way they deal with people. Hazel, how did this particular approach help you take decisions now and help you with your leadership skills?
So I actually had the privilege of of managing someone who was not being treated fairly. It wasn't at Pod, it was in another organization. And that's when it kicked in
Right.
many years ago. And I said, thankfully, I had a senior VP who was very much in alignment, and we had to go to bat for this individual, because I didn't want them to feel that they were in that struggle by themselves when I'm here and I have a senior leader who can actually do that for me. So decisions around people. Now, I'm not saying that you do that for everyone and someone who's like coasting and not. I mean, there's a performance aspect as well, but it's making sure that people don't feel that they have to advocate. Because when someone says they have to advocate, it means there's something wrong in the system.
Right.
And the other thing too is, for a key decision making for me, is leading with culture is about creating a space where things like favoritism and unfairness and people feeling the need to have to advocate for themselves in a work environment, that is so important for me to not have
Right.
in the organization. So then that just brings a different decision that we have to make, and my colleagues and I, kind of are in discussion with us. How do you scale the culture that we have? Because we have a pretty good culture in our organization, but how do you scale that?
Now, your personal story not only showcases, your journey, but it also serves as an inspiration for many other, leaders and entrepreneurs out there. So thank you so much for that, Hazel, on that note. But guidance from experienced leaders is invaluable for emerging entrepreneurs, and it's key. And we
Sure.
are very pleased to have you with us on this podcast today. What piece of advice would you offer to aspiring entrepreneurs, Hazel,
Yes.
specifically those that are venturing into operational design?
Okay. So I love the fact that you're asking me this question, because I think I'm giving advice to my future competitor. But but I whenever anyone comes and says, I'm thinking of having my own business, I'm like, okay, let's go out, let's have coffee, let's talk about this. So I will still give advice because I am very excited. I love when people want to embark. Sorry, I love when people want to embark on this journey. But there's a lot to know about it, right? So I would say if it's specifically in operations design, know exactly what operations design is. A lot of people talk about organizational design. There's not a lot on operational design. So I would say know what it is. And that ties into know what value you're providing. That's your North Star. Be clear on how you're going to do it. That's your DNA, because that needs to be built in. That's the first and second leg of the stool. Health and wellness, priority. People always talk about the hustle, and they would literally kill themselves for it. It doesn't make any sense. Health and wellness should always be prioritized. Pacing is important. 100%.
100%, yes.
Work hard. Know that failure is not a failure. Failure is a learning, and we hear that a lot. What I will add on to that is that it's a rite of passage. So expect it. And then embrace the informal mentorship. And this is what I mean by that. I have had so many people have coffee with me. I had someone who had coffee with me, and then after 3 hours, we were leaving, and she had a smoke, which means for 3 hours, she didn't have a cigarette because she was talking to me and helping me and providing. And there's so many nuggets that I got from all of these conversations, because people feel mentorship is, I need to have this formal relationship with a mentor. And yes, that is important because I've had that. But the value that I've had talking to so many different people, and and just being open to that, and they would say, you know what I think, and you take it. You don't necessarily absorb everything, but take it, park it, see how it works for you, and you get so much value out of that. And I think that is so key in the entrepreneurial journey.
And so did you. You passed on all those nuggets to our listeners today. I mean, Hazel, your wisdom and your advice are invaluable assets for our listeners today. Particularly those who are embarking on their own entrepreneurial paths. So thank you so much for spending time with us on the podcast. And we look forward to having you back with us on a topic. We'll maybe delve a bit more deep into your journey and get those insights to our listeners. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me. Happy to always talk about the journey. And if people get learning from it, 100%, I am all for it.
That's the goal. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
As we bring today's enlightening episode with Hazel Lord to a close, we reflect on the wealth of knowledge and insights shared. Hazel's journey, marked by resilience, innovation, and strategic excellence, offers crucial lessons for any aspiring entrepreneur or business leader. We delved into the essence of operational excellence and how it propels businesses towards efficiency and success. Hazel's strategies for overcoming economic downturns are a testament to her adaptability and foresight in providing a blueprint for navigating challenging business landscapes. The anecdotal wisdom she shared underscores the power of personal experiences in shaping professional paths and decision-making. We extend our heartfelt thanks to Hazel for joining us today and sharing her remarkable journey and insights. A special thank you to our partners, exclusive banking partner RBC, exclusive shipping partner UPS, exclusive accounting software partner Xero, and our exclusive email partner Constant Contact. Don't forget to subscribe to the Canadian SME Small Business Magazine for more inspiring stories and expert advice. Visit our official website at CanadianSME.ca to stay updated. Until next time, keep supporting and growing with your local small businesses. Thank you for tuning in.